Welcome to another episode of Help Nobody Told Me. I'm your host today, Shannon Johnson with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services here in Chicago. And next to me is my co-host, Mindy Leonard, with Super Organized Spaces and one of our incredible senior resource team members.
I'm so glad to be hosting with you today. Thank you
Always.
so much, Shannon. I know. And then we're really lucky that we have Bonnie here with us. Bonnielane has a company, and it is called the Family Support Services. And I'll give a brief introduction, but then you get to expand on it.
Go for it.
So if you have a loved one who is going through a severe mental health crisis
Or substance use disorder.
or substance abuse disorder, Bonnie, you're like a consultant for these families.
That's exactly
right?
what I am.
You're a consultant. People call you. You advocate for them. You help them manage what the next steps should be to make sure. Am I sort of? Okay, so that's my interpretation. Now let's hear Bonnie's.
From the expert.
So I'm basically a glorified case manager. I do complete mental health substance use navigation of all resources that you may ever need. So if you have a loved one that struggles with a serious mental illness, a substance use disorder, both with or without autism, I will help you get immediately smooth transition into a residential facility around the country, but first a hospitalization or detox, and then down to the appropriate level care, be it residential facility, partial hospitalization program or intensive outpatient program, or outpatient services. I also help people with legal issues if they want to set up a special needs trust for the benefit of their loved one because there are assets involved. If they need to get benefits from their state or federal government, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, SSI, or SSDI, if they're interested in getting guardianship with or without mental health treatment, if they need to get their loved one into a hospital when they're not willing to go to a hospital, I help them fill out a petition or writ and get them into a hospital for assessment so that then we can begin the journey to recovery.
You just threw out a lot of information.
And I do more than that too.
A lot of information. And so I think we'll go through this. We have some questions we want to ask you, but we also want you to expand on some of that and give us some examples.
Absolutely.
Without giving names. But how did you get to the point that you're at now with your career?
So I spent the first 19 years of my career. I'm a psychologist, first of all. I have 3 masters. I have a master's in special ed. I have a master's in developmental psychology, and I have a master's in counseling psychology. I'm also certified in domestic violence and certified in mediation. So I'm a certified mediator, both pure mediation and juvenile justice mediation.
I just need you to get through dinner with my 15-year-old. Can you do that?
Yes. So my population is 14 through 60. And I say 60 because the facilities that I utilize are not medical. They're psychiatric. And they don't have medical staff, medical doctors, primary care doctors on staff. They have psychiatrists. So by the time people hit 60 or older, especially if you have a chronic mental illness and you've been on the medications that mental illness requires you to be on to be stabilized, you may have some physical problems. Your organs could be impaired. You could have liver or kidney disease. And people tend to age more quickly when they have a serious mental illness because it takes a toll on your body and they're not necessarily as motivated to exercise and eat healthy because the medications can increase your appetite, make you need to sleep more, or become more agitated, so you're not doing everything you can. So at around 60, I find that people need a different level of care than what I normally provide. So there are skilled nursing facilities that may have a psychiatric floor, but that's not as easy to find. So, but I do start with age 14, so high school freshmen, through the age of 60.
Wow.
And you're based in the Chicago area.
I am, but I am nationally recognized as the expert in my field. I work with individuals and families who are responsible for a loved one all around the country, as well as facilities all around the country, because I do a very, very individualized transition plan, being mindful of people's health insurance, location, ability to visit their loved ones, and the willingness of the individual that is affected to travel. So I make a plan designed with their needs and wants in mind.
I have to like process everything you're telling me as you're saying it, because I
am recognized as the only person in the country that does what I do and the way I do it.
I'm blown away at the depth of information that we're talking about right now.
And because of how much I do, I don't work hourly. People hire me for a minimum of 6 months so that we can get everything done. And while their loved ones are in placement, no matter which stage of the placement, hospitalization, detox, residential, PHP, IOP, or outpatient treatment.
Can you explain those
Yes.
letters you just said?
IOP, okay, so you start out at hospitalization or detox.
Okay.
That's an inpatient facility. Not all hospitals have detox wards, and people even that are only abusing marijuana may require detox, because the marijuana that is available today is not the marijuana of 20 years ago. The THC level is very, very high if you buy it at a dispensary, and unfortunately, if you buy it on the street, there's a likelihood that it will be laced with other addictive drugs. So I start out with either hospitalization if it's purely serious mental illness, which would be identified as bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or schizoaffective, which is kind of a combination of the two. Schizoaffective is a mood disorder, which is the bipolar part, and a thought disorder, which is the affect, the schizo part, I apologize. Schizoaffective, the schizo part is the thought disorder. The affective is your mood, your affect. So it's a combination of the two. So those are serious mental illnesses that I address. I also do work with people who are self-medicating because of a serious mental illness. So they begin to have an addiction issue as well. And some people only have an addiction. And I say only, not to be taken lightly, but they may only have a mild mental health disorder like depression or anxiety that could be managed, but the addiction exacerbates even that mild mental health issue, so we need to get them into treatment. So the levels. We start out at the highest level of care being hospitalization or a detox. And some hospitals do have detox within the facility. I then step down to whatever is recommended. I work very closely with collaboratives, meaning psychiatrists, social workers, therapists, case managers, whoever is working in the hospital that can work with me. I design the plan for discharge. I do all my own transition planning. Hospitals around the country call me for transition planning because their social workers are not as knowledgeable about available resources and insurance. So I will then find an appropriate level of care, and the next step down level of care is residential. Residential means you are going to live 24 hours a day in a mental health facility somewhere in the country. Some of them are beautiful. They're in the mountains of Utah, on the beach in Florida, on the ocean in California, and some are in St. Louis. And depending on your
St. Louis.
Depending on your needs, your insurance, and your location, I will make a decision with the family. I don't tell people where to go. I will give them options. like, and this is what this looks like, and this is what that looks like. And I also need to include the identified person, the person that is struggling, because all of these facilities are voluntary. So sometimes I can sell a program really good if I say you'll be in California on the beach.
Right.
Just saying, especially in the winter. Or I can say you'll go skiing in Utah. That works. And I'll use whatever I can, whatever leverage I can to get them into the right level of care. When they complete the residential level of care, which is usually 30 to 45 days, that's about how long insurance will pay. I have been able to get it to pay longer when I deal with the insurance company directly and explain that we have progress notes that shows that progress is being made, but we're not yet stable. But let's say 30 to 45 days. The next level of care then is partial hospitalization. So that means you do a program during the day and you either are coming back home and living at home with family, you're living in a sober living facility, or you're living in housing that is affiliated with the partial hospitalization program. And that's about 5 to 6 hours a day for about 6 to 8 weeks. The next step down is IOP, and that's intensive outpatient. That's about 4 hours a day for another 4 to 6 weeks, also living either independently in sober living or in housing attached. Insurance will pay for the treatment part, the clinical part, not the housing. So some families do opt to do those back nearer to their home so they don't have to pay out of pocket for housing. Did I answer your question?
You absolutely did. No, that was really helpful because there are so many different ways that people can get treated. And you know the ins and outs of all of those. And the fact that you have the information to know all around the country. Yes, I mean, obviously, who wouldn't want to be on the beach in California? But that may not be the best location for somebody, right?
No, and when I'm dealing with someone that's living in Middle America, in Minnesota, or in Michigan, I can find them a very, very reputable program where they live, and especially if they're under 18, if they're still high school age, I will find them a program that includes academics. So they will not lose out on school, and they will do academics. Usually it's about 2 hours a day, and the school district works with them, and I make sure that they're ISBE, Illinois State Board of Education certified, so that they will get credit for the schoolwork they're doing when they can do it. So they don't necessarily miss out on too much.
This is why you never stop working.
This is why I never stop working.
This is why you never stop working. When somebody calls you and their loved one is in crisis, can you describe what that means to be in crisis? Because I think that's something that word means different things to different people.
Absolutely, and it does mean different things to different people. So I'll give you 2 examples. I am working with a family whose 22-year-old daughter is definitely dysregulated. She is having delusions. She is labile, which means her mood is going up and down, and she's flipping very quickly. And yet she is in complete denial of any of her symptoms, even though she's been hospitalized 4 times in the last 3 months. So this young woman is able to live at home safely right now until she decides she won't, and then we may have to involuntarily hospitalize her. But right now I am looking for assessment programs for her because I need her to understand what her diagnosis is. Not what she believes it to be, but what it is. So I work with neuropsychologists to do evaluations locally, and I work with emergency rooms if we need to hospitalize urgently. So there's different ways to look at it. And so that family, we are looking at what level of care will be best appropriate, but also where she's willing to go. So the family is in crisis. Unfortunately, the identified individual is not yet willing to get the help she needs. So we may end up having a 5th hospitalization before we can actually get her into treatment. And there are programs around the country, I spoke with 3 this morning, that do 4 to 10 day assessments. And that's all they do is diagnostic assessments. So I'm trying to convince her just to do that, but the closest one that takes insurance is in Utah. So that means we still have to get her there, and family will have to accompany her there, so it's challenging. Another family I'm dealing with has a 16-year-old who is definitely schizophrenic or schizoaffective, but I believe he's schizophrenic. He has a very, very severe thought disorder. He's in his room building things. He took apart all of his bedroom furniture, and he's building something. It's the next great thing, but no one knows what it is, including him. And after multiple hospitalizations, I was able to send him to a great program, but he refused to take his medication. And so after a while, we got him to be compliant on meds, and by that time, insurance said, well, he's now med compliant. He's been there for 3 months. We are no longer going to give him any more time. He never participated in academics. He refused. So he came home, and I made arrangements for him to go to a PHP, a partial hospitalization day program. But he wouldn't get out of the car and ended up back in the hospital. And he is now participating in a PHP through North Shore Endeavor Hospital. So crisis looks different for everyone.
It's just sinking over here. So are there things you do for the family in the midst of the...
Yes, I am the family's coach.
Because mom, dad, aunt, uncle, brother, sister, whatever, they're like...
So mental illness is a family disease. If one person in your family struggles with mental health issues, everybody is impacted. So I encourage the entire family to be involved, and I do Zoom virtual meetings, a minimum of once or twice a week with the entire family. And extra times during the week, I will meet with individual members of the family if they are primarily responsible for their loved one. And I always say the most important thing I do is communication coaching. Teaching somebody how to speak effectively to an addict, how to speak effectively to somebody with a serious thought disorder who isn't based in our reality, to speak effectively to somebody with a mood disorder who is very depressed or very anxious or manic. These are different words that we need to use, and we choose our words very carefully. So I role play with parents on how to explain what the next thing is and how to talk to them in a gentle, loving, effective way. So yes, I stay with the family for the entire 6 months plus of the time we're working together.
Wow. You mentioned very early on in this conversation that you also help people who may have autism.
I do.
And
autism is a secondary diagnosis. So I will not work with somebody whose primary diagnosis is autism without a mental illness. But unfortunately, a lot of people that I deal with are on the spectrum, but they also have a mood or thought disorder that's very profound. And I have some amazing facilities around the country that not only do the mental health piece, but they do the developmental piece. So once they leave the residential part, they go into a transitional program where they're living independently, learning how to fill out a job application, learning how to grocery shop, learning how to prepare meals and budget for it, and learning how to work together, because it's usually 2 or 3 people in a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment. So we're training them, after we get them stabilized, their mental health part, we're training them to live as independent a life as we can. Because the goal for all of us parents is that our children have the lives they've dreamt of, the lives they deserved. And as parents, that's what we want. The most important thing as parents is that we want our kids to have the lives they dreamt of and the lives they deserved. And I do everything I can to make sure that happens.
I like that you just said, when you're talking about that it's the life that the child dreams of. It's not the life that the parent wants the child to have.
No,
You specifically.
Unfortunately, I also deal with grief with parents because, you know, you have a child, you have a baby, you have a toddler, and you have these dreams. And everyone believes that their children will be lawyers, doctors, accountants, inappropriately Indian chiefs. You know the old expression, lawyer. But not all children will be able to accomplish their parents' dreams. So we have to reframe our dreams. And the most important thing I do with I run a support group twice a month. And 2 things that we do each time we meet is we celebrate small successes, which means everybody has to go around the room and talk about a success that their loved one had. Something that they witnessed, if it was they made a date with a friend and went to Starbucks. And I have one client whose son, 50 years old, left last night to go to Scotland by himself. He struggles with bipolar and addiction, and he's on his way to Scotland.
What a success story.
Yay!
Incredible.
But we celebrate little successes too, like my son made an appointment on Zoom with a psychiatrist and actually stayed in the call and expressed how he was feeling. My daughter took her meds. I mean, these are all to celebrate small successes. The other thing that I focus on is finding joy. It's very easy as a parent who is looking at their child not living the life they dreamed to feel filled with sadness and disappointment. So we always have to go around our little Zoom community, and community is my favorite word. We all need community. We go around our Zoom community and I ask them, tell me what brought you joy this week. What brought you joy? And it could be something small. Now this week I was lucky because I had Mother's Day for them to all talk about. And every one of them had some sort of joy from Mother's Day. Even a young man who's in residential treatment, he didn't call on Sunday, but he said, I couldn't get to the phone, I forgot. But he called on Monday to wish his mother a happy Mother's Day. And this is a kid that's been in his room for 2 years. And we finally got him into treatment. So that was great. Another mother said that my son took me out for dinner. Like, that brought her such joy because a year ago that never would have happened. So we have to find joy. And
I know.
And sometimes it's also personal joy. Like, what do you enjoy? Somebody will say, well, I was able to have the time to take a nice long walk and the weather was gorgeous. I always say I played pickleball. Pickleball brings me joy. But we all have to find joy in everyday small things. It's really important. We can always find things that went wrong. So I make everyone dig deep to find things that went right.
Absolutely.
And when we leave our call the second and fourth Tuesday of every month, and it's free, and I'll tell you how to get on it. When we leave our call, people that come on like anxious and feeling gray and beaten down by how the weeks have been, everybody leaves with a smile on their face. And I have had this group for 5 years. I started during COVID when everybody was isolated with their mentally ill loved ones, which was a challenge. And people would go on the call from their car just because they needed to get away because they couldn't talk freely. We have developed such an incredible friendship. And so I found my way into this field because I needed somebody like me. And I didn't exist then. And personally, I fell into a lot of potholes when I was searching for resources that would help my own family member. And I decided that when my family member was stable, I was going to devote my life to helping other families. And so it's more than a job, it's my passion, which is why I work all the time. Because when you find something you love, you don't work a day in your life. You feel great every day.
Okay, I'm over here drying the tears out of my eyes because it got a little emotional talking about moms and their babies and all of that. So we're gonna shift gears a little bit so I can
You're verklempt.
function, right?
A little verklempt. Tears are good, by the way.
Right, it is.
I like tears.
But sometimes we need a good cry. You serve on several mental health and legislative boards.
I do.
What changes are you advocating for right now?
Right now, we're advocating to get Medicaid to cover more, to have more access to subsidized, which is financial subsidized housing. Housing is health. If people can afford to live in an apartment linked with services, that independence will give them a great feeling. So we need more housing, and we need more funding for CRSS. These are people with lived experience who are trained to do home visits or apartment visits with people that have mental illness to bolster them up or help them fill out paperwork or take them grocery shopping or help them meal plan and make them more independent through their independence. So the boards that I sit on are Healthy Minds, Healthy Lives. That's through Thresholds. That's a legislative committee. I'm also on the Mental Health Summit, which is through the University of Chicago. Mark Hireman, it's also a legislative committee. I'm on NAMI, Illinois. I am the legislative liaison to NAMI Cook County North Suburban, which is located in Skokie, but it's for all Cook County North Shore. I'm on No Shame on You, where I run my group for. I sit on the board, and I am very active on their board. And No Shame on You is a grassroots mental health organization in the city of Chicago. Their offices are in Ravenswood. So I do all of that. I'm also on the Housing Task Force, which is for North and Northwest Suburban Cook County, to find developers, advocate at village and township meetings, because unfortunately we have a lot of NIMBY out there, not in my backyard. People fight. They don't want housing. We need housing, and mentally ill people are wonderful neighbors. They really are. And don't believe anything you say on the news. Most of the people that you see that are committing crimes and they try to attribute it to a mental illness, it's a personality disorder, like the Highland Park shooter, which is totally different. Sociopathy and psychopathy, a sociopath and a psychopath, are not mentally ill. They have a personality disorder, and it's a huge distinction that people need to be educated on. So I serve on all these boards because it's so important to me to help more people get the word out.
I have to ask you a really important question.
Sure.
When do you eat? When do you have time to sit down and eat, or
I
play pickleball?
Right.
Where's your balance in life?
I do have balance. I eat every day. Trust me. Mindy sees me eat. I eat the same thing every day.
She loves her yogurt and granola.
I'm very boring. I eat yogurt and granola.
You did tell us you're an old hippie, so there you go.
So
Granola and
I
yogurt.
eat a lot of plain, zero-fat granola, but I put honey on it and a lot of different fresh fruit and granola, so I make sure that I eat healthy. I always eat healthy, because if I don't eat healthy, I won't have energy, so I don't eat a lot of crap because it makes me tired and wears me down.
And all of that is important, because when you're out there taking care of all these families, you have to take care of yourself.
Right,
just
I
like
do.
any caretaker.
And I have an individual therapist. So, and I believe that everyone, no matter what stage of life you're in, everybody could use somebody to vent to. And that doesn't mean your friends, and that doesn't mean your kids or your spouse or your partner, because they actually don't want to hear you. And they can't give you the feedback that a professional can. So I'm a huge advocate of everybody having a therapist. Mental health is not just mental illness. Mental health means we keep ourselves healthy. So we exercise, we eat healthy, we do something productive every day, and we do something fun every day. It's really important.
Love it.
That's amazing. You had said when you were talking about your support group that it's free, but that you would share with everybody how they could be part of it.
Yes, if you're interested in being in the support group, if you are responsible for an adult that struggles with a mental health issue, go on noshameonyou.org and look at support group for families with seriously mentally ill loved ones. It's going to pop right up there, and click on it and you can register. It costs nothing, and you will get an email each day of the support group, and you're more than welcome to join. We have one caveat. It's my caveat. Because people are sharing very, very vulnerable, private things, you can't go on without your face. That's my only rule, because everyone else is open and showing their face and communicating. I've had people say, well, I can't show my face, I didn't wash my hair. I don't care if your hair is washed. I do care if you're present. So we need you to be present. And I don't want people to be signing in for a space on this group and texting on their phone or chatting with other people.
You need to be present.
I want you to devote that hour and 15 minutes every 2 weeks to this, because the support group is not just me giving advice. I very frequently, somebody will talk about something and I will throw it to another member of the group who's lived through this or experienced it, and I'm like, how did you handle that? So what I'm there for is resources and running the group, facilitating the group, but we are all on the group as a family, as a supportive community.
Before we close out, I want to ask you, what else would you like to share with families that might be listening out there and they just feel like there's no hope?
First of all, there's never no hope. And don't wait. The hardest thing is when I get a call from somebody who said, I just dialed 911, or my kid is in the hospital for 3 days now, what am I supposed to do? It's so late for me to be effective. If you're struggling now, call now. My consultation is free. At least call me so that we can set up some information so that when you do need it, I'm able to act quickly. So don't wait until you're in crisis. If you are struggling, if you have a high school student or a college student or somebody that comes home now after second semester and this straight A student got all D's, it's time to look into why, and let's try to figure it out together. If you're suspicious that the reason is they weren't going to class, they were isolating, they were using pot, drinking alcohol, partying too much with their fraternity or sorority, let me know. If they're isolating and made no friends, that's something concerning. And I will say that I'm seeing a lot more of that because a lot of COVID babies are now starting college, and they spent a lot of very important developmental years sitting in front of a screen, and the social skills have been retarded, and they don't really know how to make friends or how to join in or how to do homework without mom and dad telling them what to do or prompting them. And so college is very challenging, much more than it was before when you were independent in high school running around. So call me soon. Or if it's not me, call your therapist, call your primary care doctor, call your pediatrician. They'll all refer you to me, but that's fine. But
I'll end up with you one way or the other.
One way or the other, but it's okay. I'm happy to work with anyone, and I do work very collaboratively. I do not work in a vacuum. I don't think anybody can. So all of the resources that you are using, and I said I do work with attorneys if you need guardianship, if you need a special needs trust, which is a way to protect assets so that your children have them later on, or if you need somebody to help you with a criminal matter. If somebody was arrested while under the influence of drugs in a psychotic episode or manic, and they're sitting in the Department of Corrections, call me. I can help you get them out of jail and into treatment.
Wonderful. And we will link all of your information, but give us a quick, crisis, how do I get a hold of you?
bonnielane 847-651-1554. Text me. Don't call. Text me. Say your name. Say I need to talk to you, and give me your phone number, or your email address, or you can email me directly through my website, thefamilysupportservices.com, and there's a contact me link on it. You can just email me directly
Perfect.
through that. It's really easy. I check my emails every night, not during the day. Never have time. But if you're in crisis, if you need me now, text me, 847-651-1554. It's better to text me. You'll get a hold of me much quicker.
Thank you so much, Bonnie.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you
And-
for allowing me to be on your amazing program.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We're just, your information is invaluable. So we're so glad that you were here with us today. And we're glad you tuned in once again to Help Nobody Told Me.